riotous living. And the way that describes it, I'm not going to go into too much detail what he did with his money and how he spent it. But in every dark and miserable place in the town far away from his father that he went to, he spent that money on every type and kind of vice. And eventually he had nothing. And then he discovered exactly how destitute he really was. There was a famine in that land. And very often that is exactly what happens to us. We find ourselves spending everything, all of our spiritual resources, everything that God has given us to be. You are some particular person, a person that God has given you to be. We spend it and we waste it, and suddenly we discover there is nothing left. Our souls are all dried up. It's like that miserable verse in the Psalms, like a dry, waterless land, a dry, weary land. And that's how we find our souls to be. And when we're like that, we wish we could eat anything spiritual. We even have envy of a pig. And a pig will sniff you, see that you're full of demons, and go and lie down somewhere else. But, like that other friend of mine, you do have a choice. Like the prodigal son, you also have a choice. You too can come to your senses. You can wake up suddenly and say, what am I doing? Even my father's hired hands, the animals, the birds, the insects, even they have bread enough, food enough. He blesses them with everything a bird needs to be a bird. He blesses a dog with everything a dog needs to be a dog. He blesses an ant with everything an ant needs to be an ant, successfully in this life, and to glorify him with his presence. And he blesses you also with everything you need to be his son or his daughter. And when we realize that, we start heading back. Maybe you say, well, actually, maybe I ought to be like this pig, but in your house rather than in the field. Maybe I ought to be like my dog, Gus, who at least is fed and loved and taken care of. But God, your Father, has been standing on that high tower, well up, looking out not for any old body, not for anyone walking along that road, but he's been peering out there with his binoculars looking for you. And the second you turn around, the moment you turn around, the instant your heart is converted, God is rushing down that road with his robes flowing behind him, shouting out to his servants, bring the fatted calf, bring a ring, bring the best robes. And he wants to redress you in the fullness of what it means to be one of his daughters or one of his sons. That is a marvelous thing that God is there to do. If you're already one of his daughters, already one of his sons, when you see somebody else being welcomed back into God's fellowship, you should rejoice with all of your heart. We get used to the idea that God is very close, and many of us can often forget the great spiritual riches that he pours out on us day by day, or week by week. Just think only perhaps of the blessings that you have, the things that God has given to you. Think then perhaps of other things like the divine liturgy and the ability to receive Holy Communion. Think of the way that he puts out his divine hand and touches your heart and purifies you from your sin. And then remember what it is like, or what it would be like, to have that come to you for the first time. The other thing is, of course, probably, that each of us are prodigal sons and daughters, time after time after time. We receive from God, we're delighted to receive from him, and then immediately we go and squander what he gave us. And we find ourselves back again, sitting amongst the pigs. Don't despair. Immediately stand up, run towards him again. Before long, you may find yourself a second, third, or 100th time back with those pigs. Don't despair, because each time, with the same fervour, the Lord runs towards you, throws his arms around you, and rejoices because you were dead, and now you're alive. You were lost, but now you are found. That is the story of the prodigal son for us today. Not just for us, but for you individually. Remember, it's quite possible that one of these days you'll lie down next to a pig, and the pig will sniff you and walk away and sleep somewhere else. You don't have to be like that. Your natural home is a most magnificent spiritual paradise and palace. Amen.